In this lesson, we're going to discuss the LADB command transform. The LADB command transform runs a T-SQL statement for each row in your data flow. And because of this, there's a key phrase in that last bullet that makes this one of the worst performing transforms. That for each row. This means each time, or for each row that you have in your database, some sort of SQL statement is going to be kicked off inside the LADB command. So an update, insert, or delete statement will be for each row that's in your input stream. Couldn't emphasize that enough. I said it 2 or 3 times there, but that's the main reason why this transform is a killer for performance. A better option will be, usually you're going to use this transform to do some inserts, updates, or deletes. The better option will be to send all of your updates to a staging table. Just insert them straight into some sort of staging table, and then use an execute SQL task to use your update or insert. The reason the execute SQL task would be better is because with the execute SQL task, it performs that operation in a bulk load instead of having to do it for each row that you have within your data stream. All right, so let's begin with our example. Like I said, we don't suggest using the LADB command transform. We suggest using the execute SQL task, like I suggested, because of the bulk load option that the execute SQL task has. But for the purposes of learning, we're going to go ahead and show you an example of how to use the LADB command. And we're going to go ahead and start off by creating a new package called Lesson25. So to do that, right-click on your SSIS packages and select a new SSIS package. And then let's rename it Lesson25. Okay, once you have that renamed, let's go into our toolbox and bring over a data flow task. And we're going to rename the data flow task DFT for data flow task. And we're going to call it LADB command. Okay, once you have that renamed, we're going to create a new flat file connection called product price change. So we could either we can go ahead and do that by double-clicking our data flow task and go ahead and bring over the flat file source we're going to use, or we could again do that by right-clicking in the bottom and doing a new flat file connection. Let's go ahead and do it in the editor for the source. So I'm going to select the flat file source, and I'm going to go ahead and rename it discounted products. So the whole object of this lesson is going to be that we work for a company that they sell dartboard products, and the list of products we have has a discounted price coming through. So we're updating using the LADB command. We're updating the list of products prices using the LADB command. So we're starting off with our list of products here. And to select the list that we're going to find, the flat file, go ahead and double click on the flat file we just created. And then we're going to select new for the flat file connection manager. We're going to name this flat file connection manager product price change. And we're going to browse to find the location of the file we're using, which in this case is LADB command example. So select that as your file. And we have the first name, the first row should be the column names. And you can take a look at what the objects, or what the flat file is going to look like here. Okay, so we have our flat file connection manager selected. Let's go ahead and click OK. And if we want to, again, as we have been able to in all the sources, you can preview the data to see again what it's going to look like. And you can check out the columns we're bringing back. Once you have that, go ahead and click OK. Our next step is going to involve us using Management Studio to create a table. So to open Management Studio, go ahead to All Programs, Microsoft SQL Server, and SQL Server Management Studio. And you'll have this text you can either download from rocks.com or you can copy it from the book. Connect to the database that we had the AdventureWorks 2008 database in. Connect to the server. And we'll find our AdventureWorks 2008 database. And we're going to run this query. So we're going to create and run a new query using the AdventureWorks 2008 database and running this create table and inserting some data for it. This data is data that we're going to update with new prices once we use the OLIDB command. Alright, so now that we have that copied in here or typed in, go ahead and hit execute. And then you'll see that we've updated we've inserted some rows. If you want to take a look at the table we have now, you can go ahead and refresh our table list here, and you'll see we have the product OLIDB command here now. And we can take a look at what the rows look like. You'll also see that we have no end date, and for the example that we're going to be using, we are not going to, we're going to end this row. So if you think about it, we're going to change the current flag to 0, and we're going to give it an end date. Then we're going to insert a new row with the same product key and the same product name, but it's going to have a new row with the current flag of 1, and then a new start date. So we'll take a look at what this looks like here in a moment. Once we complete our package, we'll take a look at the table again. All right, so back to our package. We need to create another connection manager, an OLIDB command transform connection manager this time. So to do that, right-click in the bottom portion with the connection managers and say New OLIDB Connection. And this time we're going to use the AdventureWorks 2008 database. So we'll select that, and let me rename this to not have my computer name on it. Then the next step is going to be to bring over the OLIDB command. So just grab that from your toolbox and drag that over. Okay, now that you've dragged that over, connect your source to the OLIDB command, and we're going to open the editor now by doing the double click. And this is one of the few, you'll notice it says Advanced Editor for OLIDB command. There's 3 or 4 transforms that use the Advanced Editor, and that's the only editor it has. So that's just so you know. It's not going to change how you configure it at all, but just something to know. So we're going to set the connection manager to use the AdventureWorks 2008 database. We're not using, you'll see the other one is our flat file. We're using the AdventureWorks 2008 database. Then on the component properties, we're going to be, you can ignore for the most part everything we have here. The command timeout is set to 0, which is also infinite, so it's not going to time out. There's not really too many other things that you need to know about it in here. The description, most of the stuff is irrelevant. But we're going to use the SQL command here to tell it what we want the OLIDB command to execute. And I have this code right here. It's also in the book. We're saying we want to update the table we just created, and we want to set the current flag to equal 0 and the row end date to equals get date, whatever the date is right now, where the product business key equals question mark. And that question mark is used whenever you're using parameters in SSIS. So this means all of the, remember the OLIDB command uses for each row that we have in our data flow. So that the flat file source we have, each product business key that comes from that is going to execute this, and it's going to insert each product business key right where that equal sign is. So just remember that. And then row end date is null. So anywhere that row end date is null, it's going to execute this. So just to clear this up completely as complete as possible, let's take a look at Management Studio again, and you'll see what we're talking about. So that OLIDB command is going to change the current flag to equal 0, and it's going to update the row end date to equal get date. And then you'll see the next task that we add is going to add the new row for the updated price. Alright, so let's go back to our package. Now, just you should have an understanding of what we're doing here now. We're updating that table with what I just said. So I'm going to click OK. And our next step is going to be to go to the column mappings page. And remember, we use that parameter. So right now it's looking for, we have the available destination. We have one question mark. So right now it's looking for what is going to go into this. We told it product key equals 0, but we need to tell it from the source, the input columns, what we're going to insert into that question mark. And that's going to be the product business key. So we're going to drag that arrow over. And that's it. We have it configured. A lot of times you'll have more than one question mark, and you'll have param underscore 1, 2, 3 after the 0 there. So that's just something to keep in mind. So let's review one more time how this works, because it can be a little confusing. So I'm going to click OK, and we're going to start it from the beginning. You double-click the LADB command. We set the connection manager, what the SQL statement is going to run against. We went to the component properties, and we don't need to mess with anything else on this page except for the SQL command, where we've stuck our SQL command that's going to update the product LADB command table. Where we set in our update, we set the current flag to equal 0 and row end date to equal get whatever the current date is. And then in our where clause, we're saying where the product business key equals question mark. And remember, the question mark is the parameter in this case, which we set on the column mappings page. We also had the condition where row end date is null. And in the column mappings page, we set the product business key to equal the parameter. Remember, the big picture here whenever we're working on this is that we want to update that table that we created that has a list of products with the new product price that we get from this flat file that comes in. So we already have this table full of products, and we're getting this flat file that's updating the prices to it because it's going on clearance. Okay, so now that we've reviewed that, let's go ahead and keep going. We're going to use the derived column transform as our next tool. Go ahead and drag that over, and once you've brought that over, we're going to connect, simply bringing the green arrow onto the derived column transform. Okay, so now with the derived column transform, what we're going to do, keep going back to the big picture of this, what we're doing in the big picture. If you notice in our source we only have 3 columns. But in our destination that we're trying to load to, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns. So we're missing some columns in there, minus the product ID. That's the identity column, which we're not going to be inserting into. So we're missing a row end date and something else here. So let's go back. Yeah, we're missing our date columns. So what we need to do in our derived column transform, once we open the editor for that, is we're going to have a row start date by creating a new column, and we'll call it row start date. And then the expression that we're going to use is get date. So the get date value, the current value, is going to update that. We were also missing the current flag, so we're going to create another column called current flag and set that to equal 1. Okay, so now that we have that set, let's go ahead and click OK. And our last step is going to be to bring over an LADB destination. Drag that over and connect that to your derived column. We already have the connection manager set to the AdventureWorks 2008 database. Now we need to find the product underscore LADB command table, which we were using. We have that there, and it's telling us now that we have the table selected, we need to map it. Alright, there you go. We have the current start date. That's going to the current start date. The current flag is going to the current flag, and the other rows are the other columns are going to the correct place. The product ID is an identity column, so it's being updated within the database. So one more review of what we have going on here, because it can be a little confusing, but this is actually a common task among databases, is to have that row end date and row start date columns that you're gonna update those whenever you have a new price or a new product name, but it's actually the same product. So let's review this one more time. We have this flat file source that has a list of products that are going to be discounted. Within our OLEDB command, we are updating inside our database, inside the eventual words database, the current flag. We're setting the current flag for each product key to equal 0 and the row end date to equal get date. So we're basically closing out the current row. Then we're creating a new row by saying row start date is get date and current flag is 1. So let's go ahead and execute so that you can get a better picture of exactly what this is, because it can be a little confusing. It's a little hard to explain until you actually see it. So right click on the package and execute package to go ahead and kick it off. Alright, so we had 6 rows go through. Our OLEDB command updated 6. Then we also inserted 6. So let's stop and let's check out our table again. I'm going to execute this again. Alright, now here's the magic that we did. You'll see in the beginning here, we remembered that the product ID column was the identity column, so it automatically assigned new row, new product IDs for our new updated columns. We updated the price. You'll see $49.99 went to $44.99, and we got that from our flat file. Within our package, within our OLEDB command, we changed the current flag from 1 to 0. And then in our derived column, we added a new one called for 1. Our row start date we already had was set to January 1st, 2006. But then we updated the row end date in the OLEDB command to the current date. Then on the new row, we also said the row start date is get date. And then we don't have an end date for this yet because these are the new updated current rows. So if we wanted to see the most current rows that we have, we would say where row end date is null. This will return just the rows we want. And like I said, this is a very common practice within databases and data warehouses, is to use the row end date, row start date form. Okay, so let's review what we learned in this lesson and on the last slide here. In this lesson, we learned that the OLEDB command is used to run a SQL statement for each row you have in your data flow. We also learned that for each row in that statement that I just said is not good. Because it's running a SQL statement for each row, it's going to kill the performance of your package. So the best practice will be to insert all of your rows that you plan on updating. For instance, in the example we said we were updating a lot of rows, we would want to insert those into a staging table normally, and then update them inside an execute SQL statement. This will be the best practice to keep performance because the execute SQL task uses a bulk loading form of loading the data.